What happens when a greedy businessman thinks he can exploit an immigrant worker with impunity? This man in an expensive suit entered Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, believing his social standing would protect him. But when Judge Caprio uncovered the truth about how he treated his employee, what happened next became one of the most powerful decisions ever recorded in American judicial history. Before we reveal how Judge Caprio confronted this injustice, less than 15% of you watching are actually subscribed. If you believe that true justice knows no borders or social status, hit the subscribe button now. This story is going to spread far and wide, and you don't want to miss what happens next. It's a frigid Thursday morning at Providence Municipal Court, and Judge Frank Caprio is reviewing the day's cases. At 76 years old, Judge Caprio has presided over more than 30,000 cases in his 3 decades on the bench. But something about this particular case feels different. There's a palpable tension in the air that even his vast experience can't fully explain. The courtroom is packed this morning. In the front rows sit anxious family members, lawyers with briefcases full of documents, and local reporters who have sensed a major story. At the back of the room, a group of construction workers waits silently, their work clothes contrasting with the suits of the corporate lawyers. There's an energy in the air, a feeling that something significant is about to happen. At precisely 9:15 in the morning, the clerk clears his throat and announces the next case. Richard Blackstone versus Miguel Santos, a 42-year-old man accused of public disorder and resisting arrest. Richard Blackstone enters the courtroom like a general inspecting his troops. He wears a $3,000 Armani suit, Italian leather shoes polished to the point of gleaming like mirrors, and a silk tie that costs more than many people earn in a week. His posture is erect, almost military, and a smug smile on his face suggests complete confidence that this trial will be merely a formality. And he walks with the arrogance of someone who has never faced real consequences for his actions. Blackstone moves around the courtroom as if he owns the place, greeting some of the lawyers present with condescending nods. His eyes scan the room until they land on the section where Miguel Santos sits with his public defender, and for a brief moment, his smile becomes even more cruel. It's evident that he doesn't see Miguel as a real person, but as a minor problem that needs to be eliminated. Judge Caprio looks up, adjusts his glasses on his nose, and studies the man before him. He has already read the initial case report, but there is always more to the story than official documents can capture. Something in Blackstone's demeanor immediately catches his keen judicial attention. "Mr. Blackstone," Judge Caprio began, his voice carrying the authority of 3 decades at the bank, "you are here regarding allegations involving your employee Miguel Santos. Before we hear the details, I need you to understand that this court treats everyone with equal respect. How do you declare yourself?" Blackstone straightens up even further, if that's possible, and replies in a voice that echoes privilege. "Innocent, Your Excellency. Completely innocent. This is merely a misunderstanding caused by a disgruntled employee who doesn't understand how American business works." The words flow from his mouth with an ease that suggests he has practiced this response many times. There is a condescension in his tone that causes several spectators in the courtroom to shift uncomfortably in their seats. Judge Caprio slowly removes his glasses and places them on the table, a gesture that any experienced lawyer in his court recognizes as a sign that something important is about to happen. "Mr. Blackstone, tell me exactly what happened on the morning of October 15th. Blackstone clears his throat dramatically. "What, Your Excellency, I run Blackstone Construction, a family-owned company that has served Rhode Island for generations. We have always treated our employees with fairness and respect. Miguel Santos worked for us for approximately 6 months on various construction projects. And what exactly was Mr. Santos's role?" Judge Caprio asks, his voice maintaining a neutral tone that belays the intensity of his attention. "General laborer, mostly demolition and cleaning. Work that requires more physical strength than technical skills, you understand." The way Blackstone puts it makes it clear that he considers Miguel's work inferior and disposable. Judge Caprio makes a note in his papers. "And how much did Mr. Santos receive for this work?" For the first time, Blackstone hesitates. It's just a pause of a second, but Judge Caprio, with his decades of experience, notices immediately. "Well, that depended on the specific project. We paid per day of work completed." "That doesn't answer my question, Mr. Blackstone." "How much per day?" $60 a day's work." The answer comes out quickly, as if he wanted to get past that detail as fast as possible. Judge Caprio raises an eyebrow. $60 for a full day of heavy construction work in 2023. Does that seem like fair pay to you?" "Your Excellency, we primarily hire workers who may not have all the necessary documentation. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. They get work, we get dedicated labor. The insinuation in his words is clear, and several people in the courtroom make noises of disapproval. Judge Caprio raises his hand to silence the room. Mr. Blackstone, are you suggesting that you intentionally exploit the immigration status of your employees to pay wages below the legal minimum wage? Blackstone's lawyer stands up quickly. Objection, Your Honor. My client has not admitted knowledge of anyone's immigration status. Judge Caprio looks directly at the lawyer. Sustained. But I suggest you advise your client to choose his words more carefully. Blackstone, seemingly unaware that he is digging his own grave, continues. All I'm saying is that we offer opportunities to people who might not be able to find work elsewhere. If they are not satisfied with the terms, they are free to look for employment elsewhere. I see. And tell me about the specific incident that brought us here today. Blackstone regains his confident demeanor. On the morning of October 15th, Miguel Santos arrived at the construction site in Cranston visibly agitated and began shouting at me in front of other employees and clients. He was making completely false accusations about alleged late payments and unfair treatment. What kind of accusations specifically? He claimed he hadn't been paid for 3 weeks of work, which is completely false. We always pay our employees on time. When I tried to explain this calmly, he became even more belligerent and threatened to damage company property if he didn't receive money immediately. Judge Caprio takes more notes. And then? I had no choice but to call the police. As a responsible businessman, I cannot allow disgruntled employees to create disturbances that affect other workers and customers. When the police arrived, Miguel resisted arrest and had to be physically restrained. Blackstone pauses and looks around the room as if expecting support for his version of events. His expression suggests that he genuinely believes his story is not only credible, but that it portrays him as a victim of a problematic employee. Judge Caprio puts his glasses back on and observes Blackstone for a long moment. Mr. Blackstone, did you bring any documentation of the payments made to Mr. Santos? Again, the revealing hesitation. Well, as I mentioned, we operate primarily on a cash basis for this type of temporary work. It's a common practice in the construction industry. I understand. So you don't have written records of payments to Mr. Santos? No formal records, no. Judge Caprio turns to the public defender representing Miguel Santos. Counselor, is your client present today? Yes, Your Excellency, Miguel Santos is here and ready to testify. Very well. Mr. Santos, please come closer. Miguel Santos slowly rises from his seat. He is a man of average height, probably in his early 40s, with hands clearly marked by years of hard manual labor. His clothes are clean but visibly old, patched in places with the care of someone who cannot afford to replace items easily. He walks towards the bench with the quiet dignity of someone who has faced adversities far greater than an American courtroom. There's something about Miguel that immediately catches Judge Caprio's attention. Perhaps it's the way he holds his head high despite the obviously difficult circumstances, or the way his eyes show intelligence and determination that completely contradict the dismissive characterization Blackstone gave him. Mr. Santos, Judge Caprio began in Spanish, surprising both Miguel and Blackstone. Do you speak English, or would you prefer we conduct this in Spanish? Miguel replies in English with a strong but clearly understandable accent. I speak English, Your Honor. Not perfect, but good enough. Very well, Mr. Santos, you have heard Mr. Blackstone's testimony. Tell me your version of events. Miguel respira fundo antes de comer. Your Honor, I work for Mr. Blackstone for 6 months. Every day I arrive at 7 in the morning, work until 6 at night, sometimes later. Very hard work, breaking concrete, moving heavy materials, cleaning construction sites. His voice is steady, but Judge Caprio can detect the controlled emotion behind the words. Mr. Blackstone, he tell me $60 per day payment every Friday. First month, he pay me okay. But then Miguel pausa claramente lutando para encontrar as palabras certas em Ingles. Then he start making excuses. Next week, Miguel, check is coming. Miguel, little problem with payroll, Miguel. How long did this continue? 3 weeks without payment, Your Honor. 3 weeks I work every day, and my family, we have nothing. My daughter, she need medicine for asthma, but I have no money for prescription. The emotion in Miguel's voice is palpable now, and several people in the courtroom lean forward, clearly moved by his story. Tell me about the morning of October 15th. Miguel ojo directamente para Blackstone antes de responder. That morning I decide I cannot wait anymore. My landlord threatening eviction, my daughter sick, my wife crying every night because we have no food. So I go to Mr. Blackstone and I ask, very respectful, please sir, I need my money. My family is suffering. And how did he respond? He laugh at me. He say, what you gonna do about it, Miguel? Call immigration. Then he tell me if I don't like it, I can leave and never come back. The revelation causes a murmur of indignation in the courtroom. Judge Caprio raises his hand to restore the silence. Continue, Mr. Santos. I tell him this is not right, that I work hard for this money, that my family depend on it, and he push me and tell me to get out, or he will call police and tell them I am a legal immigrant causing trouble. Did you become physical with Mr. Blackstone? No, Your Honor. Never. I never touch him. I only ask for my money, what I earn with my work. Then what happened? Miguel's voice becomes quieter but more intense. I call police anyway. When they arrive, Mr. Blackstone, he tell them I was threatening him, that I try to steal from company. Police, they not speak Spanish very good, and my English. When I am upset, it become worse. They think I am dangerous man causing problems. Did you resist arrest? Your Honor, I try to explain to police what really happening, but they no listen. When they try to put handcuffs, I was scared. In my country, sometimes when police take you... Miguel pauses, clearly fighting back tears. I was afraid I never see my family again, so yes, I pull away but not to hurt anyone. Just because I was terrified. Judge Caprio observes Miguel carefully as he speaks. There's something about the man's demeanor, the way he maintains eye contact, the consistency of his story, the raw emotion that seems impossible to fake, that speaks to the judge's experienced intuition about truth and deception. Guys, before I tell you what Judge Caprio does next, I need you to do something. In the comments below, tell me how many of you have seen or experienced unfair treatment at work. Because this story is about more than just a court case, it's about human dignity and the right of every worker to be treated with respect, regardless of where they were born. Judge Caprio turns to Blackstone. Mr. Blackstone, would you like to comment on Mr. Santos' testimony? Blackstone, whose initial confidence now seems slightly shaken, responds defensively. Your Honor, this man is obviously fabricating a story to avoid the consequences of his violent behavior. I run a legitimate business and always fulfill my obligations to employees. You always meet your obligations to employees? Judge Caprio repeat lineament. Yet you have no written records of payments to Mr. Santos. You pay $60 for an 11-hour workday of heavy construction labor. And according to his testimony, you explicitly threatened to use his immigration status against him. Your Excellency, I categorically deny having made any threat related to immigration status. Judge Caprio places his glasses back on the table and stands up. This is the moment that everyone in the room recognizes as significant. When Judge Caprio stands up during a procedure, it means that something important is about to happen. Mr. Blackstone, Judge Caprio began, his voice carrying an authority that brought the entire room to absolute silence. I've been in this bank for over 30 years. In that time, I've seen every kind of case, every kind of person, and every kind of excuse. Judge Caprio walks slowly around his bench, a movement he only makes during the most crucial moments of a case. I've seen rich people try to use their money to escape responsibility. I've seen poor people exploited because someone thought they had no voice. But what I see here today is particularly disturbing. The courtroom is now completely silent. Blackstone is starting to look uncomfortable for the first time. Mr. Santos, Judge Caprio turns to Miguel. You mentioned your daughter. Tell me about her. Miguel's eyes immediately brighten despite the difficult circumstances. She is 7 years old, Your Honor. Very smart, love to read. She want to be teacher when she grow up. And her asthma medication is very expensive. Without insurance, we pay $150 every month. When Mr. Blackstone no pay me, we cannot buy medicine. She have very bad attack last week. We have to take her to emergency room. Judge Caprio nods slowly, then turns back to Blackstone. Mr. Blackstone, do you have children? Yes, Your Honor, 2 sons. Have they ever been sick, really sick, where you were worried about their health? Blackstone looks confused by the question. Well, yes, of course. All children get sick sometimes. And when that happened, I imagine you didn't hesitate to get them the best medical care available, regardless of cost. Obviously, Your Honor. Obviously. Judge Caprio repeats the word with a weight that makes Blackstone visibly uncomfortable. Because that's what parents do. They sacrifice everything for their children's well-being. Judge Caprio walks back toward his bench but doesn't sit down yet. Mr. Blackstone, I want you to imagine something for me. Imagine that you worked 11 hours a day doing back-breaking physical labor. Imagine that someone owed you 3 weeks' worth of pay that your family desperately needed. Imagine your child was sick and you couldn't afford her medication. Imagine going to your employer, hat in hand, asking respectfully for money you had already earned, only to be laughed at and threatened. Blackstone opens his mouth to respond, but Judge Caprio raises a hand to stop him. I'm not finished. Now imagine that when you tried to stand up for yourself, when you tried to advocate for your family, you were arrested and charged with crimes. How would that make you feel? For the first time, Blackstone has no ready answer. His usual arrogance has been replaced by visible discomfort. Your Honor, Blackstone's lawyer interjects, with respect. This line of questioning seems to be straying from the specific charges. Counselor. Judge Caprio's voice carries a sharp edge. This line of questioning goes directly to the heart of what happened on October 15th. Sit down. The lawyer immediately complies. Judge Caprio turns back to Blackstone. Mr. Blackstone, I've been studying people for a long time. I can usually tell when someone is telling the truth and when they're not. Mr. Santos' story has the ring of truth to it. It's consistent, emotional, and detailed in ways that are very difficult to fabricate. He pauses, letting the weight of his words sink in. Your story, on the other hand, has convenient gaps. No documentation of payments, no witnesses to corroborate your version of events. And most tellingly, no explanation for why a man would risk arrest and deportation over money he wasn't actually owed. Blackstone tries to maintain his composure, but cracks are beginning to show. Your Honor, I resent the implication that I would lie under oath. Mr. Blackstone, let me tell you something about this courtroom. This courtroom doesn't care how much money you have, what kind of car you drive, or what neighborhood you live in. This courtroom cares about one thing: justice. Judge Caprio's voice rises slightly, and the passion behind his words is unmistakable. And justice means that when someone works, they get paid. Justice means that you can't exploit people because you think they have no recourse. Justice means that every human being, regardless of where they were born, deserves to be treated with dignity. The entire courtroom fell silent. Even the court reporters stopped typing, transfixed by Judge Caprio's words. Mr. Blackstone, I want you to look at Mr. Santos. Really look at him. Reluctantly, Blackstone turns toward Miguel. That man worked for you for 6 months. He showed up every day at 7 in the morning and didn't leave until 6 at night. He did the hard, dirty work that your business depends on. He asked for nothing more than the wages you promised him. And instead of paying him what you owed, you threatened him, humiliated him, and then had him arrested when he asked for basic fairness. Judge Caprio slowly removed his glasses and placed them on his desk. When he looked up again, his eyes held the intensity that made everyone in the courtroom lean forward. Let me tell you what I see when I look at this case. I see a hard-working father who came to this country seeking nothing more than an opportunity to provide for his family. I see a man who took whatever work he could find and did it with dignity, even when that work was difficult and the pay was inadequate. He pauses, scanning the faces in the courtroom, and I see an employer who systematically exploited that desperation, who used his knowledge of his workers' vulnerable status to avoid paying fair wages, who threatened deportation when confronted with his own dishonesty. Blackstone's face has gone pale. For the first time since entering the courtroom, his arrogant facade has completely crumbled. Mr. Blackstone, the charges against Mr. Santos are dismissed. Furthermore, I am ordering you to pay Mr. Santos the full amount you owe him, 3 weeks of wages at the prevailing rate for construction workers in Rhode Island, which is $22 per hour, not $60 per day. The courtroom erupts in murmurs of approval, but Judge Caprio raises his hand for silence. That comes to approximately $1,800. You will have that money to Mr. Santos before you leave this building today. Blackstone's lawyer jumps up. Your Honor, with respect, this court doesn't have jurisdiction to order wage payments in a criminal proceeding. You're absolutely right, Counselor. This court doesn't have that jurisdiction. Judge Caprio's smile has no warmth in it. But I can certainly refer this matter to the Department of Labor for investigation of wage theft and to the Attorney General's office for potential criminal charges related to exploitation of workers. The lawyer sits down immediately. Judge Caprio turns back to Blackstone. Or you can choose to do the right thing right now, voluntarily, and end this matter with whatever dignity you have left. Blackstone looks around the courtroom desperately, as if searching for support that isn't coming. Finally, his shoulders slump in defeat. I'll pay him. Good, but we're not finished yet. Judge Caprio walks to the front of his bench and looks directly at Blackstone. Mr. Blackstone, I want you to apologize to Mr. Santos. Not because I'm ordering you to, but because it's the right thing to do. This man deserves to hear that what happened to him was wrong. For a long moment, the two men stare at each other across the courtroom. Finally, Blackstone turns toward Miguel. Mr. Santos, I apologize for... He struggles with the words, clearly unaccustomed to taking responsibility for his actions. I apologize for not paying you on time, and for how I treated you. Miguel nods graciously, showing more class in that moment than Blackstone had demonstrated throughout the entire proceeding. Judge Caprio isn't finished. Mr. Blackstone, there's one more thing I want you to understand. Mr. Santos didn't come to this country to take anything from anyone. He came here for the same reason your ancestors probably did, for opportunity, for hope, for a chance to build a better life for his family. Judge Caprio's voice becomes softer but more intense. This country was built by immigrants, by people willing to work hard, to sacrifice, to do whatever it takes to provide for their loved ones. When you exploit someone like Mr. Santos, you're not just hurting him, you're betraying the very values that made America great. The silence in the courtroom is profound. Several people in the gallery are wiping away tears. Mr. Santos, Judge Caprio turns to Miguel. I want to say something to you. What happened to you was not your fault. You had every right to ask for wages you had earned. You had every right to stand up for yourself and your family. And despite what Mr. Blackstone may have told you, you have every right to be treated with dignity and respect. Miguel's eyes fill with tears, but he maintains his composure. This country is better because people like you are here. People who work hard, who value family, who have courage to stand up for what's right even when it's difficult. Don't let anyone ever make you feel ashamed of who you are or where you came from. Judge Caprio pauses, then adds, and Mr. Santos, your daughter is going to grow up to be very proud of her father, not because of what you've accomplished, but because of how you faced adversity with dignity. The entire courtroom erupts in applause. Even some of the court officers are clapping. Miguel Santos, overwhelmed by emotion, covers his face with his hands. When the applause finally dies down, Judge Caprio addresses the courtroom one final time. This case is about more than a workplace dispute. It's about the kind of society we want to live in. Do we want to live in a society where powerful people can exploit vulnerable people without consequences? Where someone's immigration status makes them fair game for abuse? Where hard work and human dignity mean nothing? He looks around the packed courtroom. Or do we want to live in a society where everyone is treated fairly, where everyone gets paid for honest work, where everyone is treated with basic human respect regardless of where they were born or what language they speak at home? The crowd murmurs agreement. The choice is ours to make, every single day, in how we treat each other. As the proceedings concluded, something remarkable happened. Blackstone, who had entered the courtroom with such arrogance and contempt, walked over to Miguel Santos. The two men spoke quietly for a few moments, and then, to everyone's surprise, Blackstone extended his hand. Miguel shook it, once again showing the kind of grace that had characterized his behavior throughout the ordeal. 6 months later, Miguel Santos received a letter that would change his family's life forever. A local construction company owner who had been in the courtroom that day had been so moved by Miguel's story and Judge Caprio's words that he offered Miguel a full-time position with his company, complete with health insurance, proper wages, and opportunities for advancement. Miguel's daughter Elena got the consistent medical care she needed for her asthma. Her condition improved dramatically, and she was able to participate in school activities that had previously been impossible. She often told her classmates about the day her father stood up to a powerful man and won, not through violence or anger, but through truth and dignity. Miguel himself enrolled in evening English classes and began studying for his contractor's license. Within 2 years, he had started his own small construction business, and his first employee was another immigrant worker who needed a fair chance. As for Richard Blackstone, the experience was a wake-up call he didn't know he needed. The Department of Labor investigation that followed revealed systematic wage theft affecting dozens of workers over several years. Rather than face criminal charges, Blackstone agreed to pay all back wages, change his business practices, and submit to regular audits. More importantly, he began to understand that his wealth and status didn't give him the right to treat other people as disposable. Judge Frank Caprio's decision that day sent ripples through Providence and beyond. Video of the proceedings went viral, viewed millions of times by people around the world who were hungry for examples of real justice in action. Immigration advocacy groups used the case as an example of how vulnerable workers could stand up for their rights. Business owners throughout Rhode Island found themselves examining their own practices, knowing that Judge Caprio's courtroom was a place where exploitation would not be tolerated. But perhaps most importantly, Miguel Santos's courage inspired other workers to come forward with their own stories of abuse and exploitation. A wave of wage theft cases followed, leading to new state legislation strengthening protections for all workers, regardless of immigration status. If this story touched you and restored your faith in the possibility of true justice, I need you to do something important. Like this video if you believe that every worker deserves dignity and fair respect. Subscribe for more stories that show how individual courage can change the world. And remember the words of Judge Caprio. This country was built by immigrants willing to work hard, to sacrifice, to do whatever it takes to support their families. When we honor that courage, we honor the best of who we are as a society.